friends and welcome back. My name is Katie and today I just wanted to do a little bit of like casual friendly window shopping with you. Basically, if you've been around for a little while, you will have noticed that in the last couple of months, I have gotten more and more into genre fiction, in particular, fantasy. This is a genre that I was once really quite intimidated by, and honestly, I avoided for a really long time. Partly I was intimidated by like the flowery language and like the big world building and feeling like I'd have to keep track of like 50 different characters. Also, I was intimidated by the length of the books and the length of the series. And while I'm not entirely over those hang-ups, I do feel like I'm moving through them steadily and slowly. And I'm just finding myself more and more inclined to picking up fantasy novels. And I mean, I've been dipping my toe in with a few books and I've been enjoying my journey, but I have also been, you know, watching the reviews, getting recommendations online, and I've got myself a list of fantasy books and series that I low-key want to buy. Not even low-key, I high-key want to buy them. But I do already have plenty of books on my bookshelves, including several fantasy novels that I'm yet to get to. And on top of that, I'm wary of sort of like overwhelming myself with big books and big fantasy books in particular because I am a children's bookseller. So I definitely still have to allow plenty of time and space in my reading month to read children's books. And none of these are children's books. A couple of them might be YA, but they're not really, like, we don't stock them anyway. So partly as a way to sort of explore some books with you and maybe get some suggestions or recommendations from you if you want to share them, but also as a way for me to be able to talk about these books without spending all of my money and taking up all of my bookshelf immediately. I just wanted to walk you through some of these books that I've been thinking about buying. And so to sort of halt myself, at least temporarily, I've been making a list. So let's talk about the list. Firstly, I've got Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Now, I know this isn't a series, but it is a book that I've been recommended multiple times. Was it last year or the year before that I read Stardust by Neil Gaiman? That's the only Neil Gaiman book I've ever read, and I really didn't like it. But I've heard so many great things about Neil Gaiman, and like, I want to like him. I mean, I always want to find new authors that I enjoy. And so I have been recommended multiple times directly and personally, or just more generally online or whatever, to try Ocean at the End of the Lane. I have no idea what it's about, but I figure because it's Neil Gaiman, it might be a bit magical, maybe a bit creepy, hopefully some good storytelling. Ken Liu is an author that I'm very interested in trying. The first book that I sort of saw recommended by a lot of people was Paper Menagerie, which I think is his new, or at least relatively new, short story collection. I think I actually already have a short story collection by him on my shelf somewhere, maybe? How does the alphabet work? I do tend to quite enjoy short stories. I don't read short story collections a lot because they can definitely be very hit or miss, but like, I like them, and so like, I'm intrigued by this one and I've heard really good things. Then Ken Liu's Dandelion Dynasty series, I think is what it's called, and The Grace of Kings, I think is the first book. That one I've been hearing some like sort of like rumbling buzz, you know, like it's not super hyped, but just like every time I see someone talk about these books, they love them. And I know that we have them in our grown-up store and the covers are really pretty, but they are big books and I think there's 4 of them, so it's a little intimidating, but it is definitely a series that I think is quite high up on my list. Then another author I've been hearing some great buzz, like hype, let's just call it hype, around is R.F. Kuang and the Poppy War series, obviously. I am interested in this, although I've just heard repeatedly, check the trigger warnings, and I'm honestly, as much as I am happy maybe isn't the right word, but I often do read very hard-hitting books, I just don't know that I'm quite in the mood for it at the moment. Obviously, this author is also coming out with Babel very soon, and I feel like this is a hugely hyped book. Everyone's really excited about it. All the reviews that I've seen come in for it love it. So I'm wondering if maybe I should wait for Babel, if maybe that would be a bit more up my street than the Poppy War. Then we've got Jade City by Fonda Lee, and I think this is like a trilogy urban fantasy. I honestly don't think I've read anything quite like this, so I have no idea if I would enjoy it, but again, I've just heard such great things. And I have heard from multiple people that all 3 books are really solid and that it definitely sticks the landing. And I can't lie, that's certainly something that appeals to me. Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Now this is one I'm not really sure on. I have been like personally recommended it recently by someone that I work with. I did read The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I included in a vlog that I did recently, so I'll leave a link to that up above in the cards for you if you'd like to hear my full thoughts on that book. But basically, I didn't really like it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it, and I obviously had some problems with it. But I think this one comments directly on issues around mortality, and that is a topic that when done in a particular kind of way, definitely appeals to me, especially in sort of magical realism and fantasy. And given that, like, even though I didn't like The House in the Cerulean Sea, I got a feel for TJ Klune's style in terms of how he tells his stories and his writing style. And so I think that if he chose to tackle the topic of mortality, I think it could be something that I'd like. But I don't know, I think I need to do a bit more review sifting to find out if, you know, this is different enough from The House in the Cerulean Sea for someone who really didn't like that book to still enjoy this one. She Who Became the Sun, this is another book that I've seen quite a lot of recently, and some people that I am friends with on GoodReads and stuff have given rave reviews to. Don't know a whole lot about it other than that people love it, that it's fantasy, and it's got a really pretty cover. Gideon the Ninth, I feel like, is a book that maybe doesn't have like the level of hype that some other fantasies do, but it has this kind of like cult following of people who adore it. And I recently watched a YouTube channel that I really like, Gina, do a review of this book, and she made it sound incredible. So she's the reason it's on this list. The Master of Jinn, this is another one that some people that I am friends with on GoodReads have given rave reviews, and I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm someone who likes to go into books without knowing too much. I'm not someone who's too worried about spoilers, but at the same time, I don't know, I don't like getting overly caught up in what's going to happen in the book and building up my expectations too much. I do want to get a sense of if I'm going to like it, but I want to know more like the feeling of the book than I do the plot. Does that make sense? Anyway, I think this is set in like 1920s in Cairo, which is a really cool setting for a science fiction or a fantasy book, and I definitely haven't read anything like that before. Then a series I came across via Reddit, actually. I was Googling fun fantasy series because I don't know, as much as I like love the 5th season and I can't wait to finish the Broken Earth trilogy, and you know, like I love having my heart torn out and broken into pieces and put back together again, I also am just in a bit of a mood for some cozy, fun reads. And although I don't mind like hard-hitting stories, so much of fantasy at the moment feels like it's heavily rooted in grimdark, and I don't think that's really my vibe. And a series that was constantly recommended on Reddit for fun fantasy series was, I have no idea how to pronounce this, but like Rhaeria Revelations by Michael J. Sullivan. These books are huge though, so the intimidation factor is pretty high. And then on top of that, I think it's like at least the two main characters for the first couple of books are two guys. It's written by a white male author. And I don't know, personally, I just feel like I've been burnt so many times by white male authors. And after my experience with Brandon Sanderson, I don't know that I really want to dive into that end of fantasy. You know, like it's so much of what fantasy is known for, or how people perceive fantasy. And even though I definitely am intrigued by a fun fantasy story with a great friendship, like honestly, I want some fun fantasy. And this is the one that keeps getting recommended to me. So like, I'm not opposed to trying it. I'm not entirely sold yet either, you know? And then a couple of series that I've heard really great things about, and I don't know if they fit into YA categories, but I know that we've had one or two of these in at the shop, and they've been big on BookTube for the last couple of years. The first is like the Jasmine Throne series. I don't know what the name of the series is, but that's the name of the first book. City of Brass is another one I've heard great things about, and An Ember in the Ashes. I don't know, there's a lot of books on my list and I kind of don't know where to start. And obviously I already have books on my shelf. I should start with those. But I mean, that part of me that just enjoys watching BookTube, watching BookTok, you know, and keeps getting new recommendations and keeps wanting to explore new fun things. I think making this list is a good idea for me to sort of like have a place to put these recommendations so that I feel like they're not getting lost. They are somewhere for me to come back to when I actually am ready to make a new purchase. But I am also just feeling a little overwhelmed by the world of fantasy. I think I was definitely someone who, like I spoke about at the beginning, I was intimidated by many elements of fantasy. And on top of that, I also kind of felt like in some ways fantasy wasn't really for me. I think I very much surface level saw it as a thing that was written by and for cis het white dudes. And let's not lie, that is a big part of at least the very public facing and celebrated aspect of fantasy. And I just didn't want to read about some white hero going off and like conquering people. Like that just does not appeal to me. So I'm so excited about finding new stories that are fun and fresh and exciting and inventive and imaginative and just sweep me away. And the further down the rabbit hole I get, the more of that I realize there is. And now I'm just feeling a bit overwhelmed and I don't know where to look. I don't know where to start. So like I said, I'm making this video for myself just to be able to chat about books to sort of, you know, as a fill-in for the materialistic shopping buzz that I could get just buying them, but also to see if any of you have read any of these or if you've heard friends recommend any of these, and you know, based on what you know about me and my reading preference, if there is a series or two from this list that you would really recommend I start on. Or maybe you know of something completely different and I can add that to my list. Why not? Anyway, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thanks for hanging out with me in this like kind of chatty, casual video. I had some fun. I hope you did too. Of course, a big thank you goes to my patrons over on Patreon, especially to Livia, Lynette Brown, and Laurie. And an extra special thank you to my latest high tier patron, Marie. I will chat with you soon in the comments and in the next video. Until then, happy reading. Bye.